Can't get enough of Team Pete? Well, you've come to the right place, as each week I interview supporters of Pete Buttigieg, former candidate for President of the United States and current Secretary of Transportation. Hear their personal stories about why they became part of Team Pete and how they started a movement. Join us as we talk Pete, politics, and anything in between. Hi everyone, my name is Kim Ann, and I am the host of this Talking with Pete podcast, and my first guest today is Nathan Bowie. So Nathan, hi, good to see you.
Hi Kim, nice to see you.
All right, so how about we just dive into this, and can you tell people a little bit about yourself, or just how you got involved in with Pete's campaign?
Yeah, sure. So I became a supporter of Pete. It came from, watching this YouTube video on CNN. It's about the town hall interview and conducted by Jake Tapper in around, mid-March 2019. And, as I listened to his answers to the questions, uh, something lit up in me, right? And I recognized right there that Pete was going to be a great candidate. And then, I started to read the comments below the video, and almost all of them were in approval of him or favorable about Pete. So that validated how I was initially feeling about him as a serious contender. And there happened to be other videos as well, and recordings of him making stump speeches in his campaign. So I clicked on them because I wanted to know more about him, and the rest is pretty much the same experience that I'm pretty sure everyone was having, which was joyful experience to research on this unknown candidate out of nowhere. And the more you do it, the more joyful it became, because you start to realize that there was a community that was forming, and it was growing rapidly because of this candidate.
Yeah, so you kind of went down the YouTube rabbit hole just like I did. And yeah, because the first time that I heard about Pete was through Mary, of course, that you knew. And so she told me about, hey, there's this gay guy from Indiana who's running for president. And I thought to myself, yeah, right, it's not going to happen. And then I somehow stumbled upon an interview of his on YouTube as well. And it was, I think, a town hall type of format from Chicago, a Chicago TV show. And I was so impressed with the way that he answered all the questions, like just really answered the question and didn't really try to maneuver and do all those things that politicians tend to do, evade the question and don't really answer. And so I was very intrigued, and all of his answers were just kind of just resonated with me and my heart, and just felt, wow, this guy is just so amazing, and you can just feel his empathy and sympathy and kindness radiating through. So I watched more videos, and like everybody else, I kind of went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So I was also impressed with his.
So what?
So go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I think there's a little bit of a lag.
His,
So
background in the military, and being a two-term mayor at that age, no less, right? And among other things. So I was like, yeah, he might have a shot at this, even though there were other great competitors at that time. Yeah.
yeah, and so what stuck out about him to you that just made you connect?
I found him to be, first of all, like bold, right? Because, to run for president at that age and against, the many competitors out there, he was pretty much a nobody. But he was able to, back up that boldness with like a level of substance behind his like policy. Because the things that he were proposing were centered around the core values that we all believe in, right? Like freedom, democracy, and security. And so if we can all agree on that, and then we can agree on, the solutions that P was proposing, which was quite realistic. And so based on that, I felt like, he had a strong like ground to stand on, to put himself out there so that people can buy into his candidacy.
I agree with a lot of his policy and the way that he approaches it and solutions that he would propose. So, yeah, I think that there was just something special about him, and the more that you hear about him or you hear him talk, the more it kind of validates that feeling. All right, so tell me, what made you decide to volunteer for his campaign?
Well, first of all, the obvious thing was that we had a Republican president who was being very detrimental to the country, and I felt like
Mm-hmm.
with Pete, if he were to become our president, there couldn't be any more of a contrast to Donald Trump. And we needed this, and we also,
Mm-hmm.
we needed. I felt that we needed a fresh change, so to say. Um, and I felt like, what, this is something that I truly believe in, like for the first time. So, I'm going to take a leap of faith and, support him however I could. So I started to put in some donations. And then, I looked around, in
Mm-hmm.
our local area for, groups who were, supporting him and his candidacy, and I found them. And, you know, I also went to, his campaign stops. He made several stops here in the Bay Area, and the more I went to them, the more people that I started to recognize. So I started to realize that, this is our community here. We were growing, and I felt like these
Mm-hmm.
people were, gonna become my new friends. And so I found that to be quite joyful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like supporting Pete and that's it, but along the way, I found other benefits of finding some belonging with this new group of friends. And overall, it was a very pleasant experience, to go through this journey, to to support somebody who I felt was going to, make a positive change for the country. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said. And I think for me, it was a similar feeling that, I just wanted Trump out of there, and to see the way that he has been really destroying the country for the past 4 years. And I felt like this was such a consequential election.
It was.
And I just felt so compelled to take action. And I mean, even with Obama, I know he was very inspiring candidate, but I didn't feel that push to really participate in any way and volunteer. But with Pete, I felt, yeah, just something nudging at me, and I just took the steps and said to Mary, "Hey, let's volunteer for Pete's campaign." She's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So, and then that's actually where we met you the first
Right.
time,
I remember meeting you
was at
in
the Silicon
January.
Valley.
Yeah, I recall meeting you
No,
guys
we
in
met you
January
before
at
that.
that. Well, I don't recall, but I think I recall you seeing you in that at that meeting in January, and then we saw each other again in Reno just a couple of weeks later when we went barnstorming. You might have seen me like
Oh, okay,
other events
yeah,
from
that's
that
right,
point.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It was in January. Was the volunteer orientation, right?
That's right. That's
In
right.
Silicon Valley with the Silicon Valley group. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
after that, it was Reno. Yeah, that's right. I
Yeah.
was
And then we got to
thinking
see each other
it
again, like
wasn't that
I think
long ago.
around February when we met in San Mateo, huh? For the
Yeah.
Chinese New Year, remember?
Yeah, so the second time we met you was at the Reno event. I think it was for Pete's birthday or something like that.
The day prior to
And
his birthday.
that's where I actually,
Early on that day, we
yeah,
marched for the Women's March, right?
right. And then, yeah, and then I think at that event I actually got a chance to talk to you.
Yeah, we
It's
took
like, I
pictures
think
together.
he's Vietnamese, so like I was saying to Mary, I think he's Vietnamese. We should go talk to him. Yeah. So it's always nice when to run into other Vietnamese supporters because I feel like the Vietnamese community, I'm not sure if the right way to describe it is that they're not as politically aware as some of the other groups, but for me,
Well,
I
it
just
depends
feel like
on which
they are.
party, they are in.
Mhm.
Uh, I know
You
that
feel like the democratic Vietnamese are more aware.
um, that I can't say for sure, but I know that for
Hmm.
the conservative Vietnamese population, I think they're a bit more aware because I think they are more like involved,
Mm. On the Republican side.
and I think they're more vocal as well. If you know what I mean.
Ah, yes, yes. So are your parents politically aware?
Uh, my dad is more politically aware than my mom is. But yeah, my dad,
Hmm.
he's
So would you consider them Republicans or Democrats or independents?
they are definitely Democrats because that's what they're registered as. But
Hmm.
still, my dad is quite open-minded because he likes to listen to both sides. You know, whereas my mom,
Hmm.
she tends to be more biased towards one side than the other.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, both of my parents are registered Republicans.
yeah, talking about families, both of us can agree that we have family members who belong to both sides of the spectrum, right? So we definitely have some
Hmm.
hardcore family members out there who are heavily leaning towards Republican, and then there are others who are favoring liberals.
Yeah. Well, my parents are registered Republicans, but I think in the last election I convinced them to vote for Pete, so
That's a
but
definite huge plus.
that was before he pulled out.
Well, again, that's one of the great things about Pete, right? He was able to get many Republicans on to our side, right? Yeah, nowadays is
Hmm.
or prior to that, it wasn't very easy to to convince people to switch sides. But that's what great about Pete. He had that ability to talk some sense into people to get them to to agree with what he was going for.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So were your parents surprised when you started volunteering for his campaign, or did they kind of left you
Yeah,
to your
at
own
first they
devices
were
and
surprised
let you
because
be?
this is not something that I normally do. Like this is like really out of my comfort zone.
Hmm.
But but once they start to
Yeah.
realized that how serious and important this was. So, they were really supportive of me. And, every weekend, I went out to volunteer to be with, the other, um, uh, the local supporters, at the farmers market. And so they were, you know, very supportive, my parents, and, they sort of expected that I would spend every Sunday, going out, to volunteer for Pete.
Mm. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. Yeah, I think my family was kind of surprised that I did that too, because I'm very much an introvert. Sort of speaking to strangers is not something I'm comfortable with, especially standing there at the farmer's market and having to approach people and getting them to vote for Pete. It's not, like you said, it's out of my comfort zone as well. So, but it's amazing the people that Pete touched. And I've heard so many stories from the Facebook groups of people who are never done anything like that before. And they were willing to go out and support him in that way. So it's quite remarkable.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you're out there, you're not alone because, you're with somebody else out there, who are, sharing the same, belief vision with you. And so you have like, a large level of support. So that's why, it became a lot easier the more you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the first time that I went knocking on doors, I had a partner with me, and I was so nervous that I let her do all the talking, and I just kind of stood in the back and try to chime in if I can. But for the most part, she did most of the work.
Yeah.
So, did you enjoy that part of knocking on doors and talking to people?
Oh yeah, definitely. My first time doing that was in Des Moines, Iowa. I went out with this lady
Oh.
from New Hampshire. So we knocked on
Mm-hmm.
doors. We took our Uber to this one section or this one area around Des Moines, and many people opened the doors and were willing to talk to us. And we were fortunate enough
Mm-hmm.
to uh, we got a couple of people to sign their commit to caucus cards, and that felt totally exciting, to get people to commit to that, and and to spread the word, to let them know about this candidate, this new candidate, who is like making waves and has a great shot
Mm-hmm.
of winning. And turned out that he actually did win Iowa. So uh, it felt good. It felt like
Yeah.
our work
Yeah.
there that was validated.
Mm-hmm. Well, he won it like 2 weeks later,
Right.
which kind of burst everybody's bubble. But yeah, that's another issue. So I didn't know that you went to Iowa. How many times did you go there?
I went there just once in at the end of October,
Mm-hmm.
and then a couple of days into November. It was for the Liberty
Mm.
Justice dinner, I believe. Yeah. And then
Oh,
after
yeah.
that,
Mm-hmm.
we went, we start to canvas, our group of barnstormers for Pete. The next day we went, knocking on doors, canvassing, and got people to, sign their commit to caucus cards.
Mm-hmm.
That was the
Yeah.
first wave
Um,
in Des Moines, Iowa. I didn't come to the second one, but I heard that uh,
oh.
yeah, there were people who did come back, and they worked really hard, and thanks to them as well, because they put in the work to help Pete win Iowa, most definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lots of boots on the ground in Iowa. So, what was the best thing about volunteering for Pete? I think you kind of touched on it a little bit with meeting people and
Yeah, definitely.
kind of having
Normally
an
I don't have
extension
a
of
very large
friends.
circle of friends, but suddenly I found myself to be surrounded by these great people, and we got to become friends and hang out more and talk more about politics in a positive way, and that's
Hmm.
just great. I mean, and also it made me feel like I had some place to belong to, you know. So
Hmm.
and these people were very welcoming and warm, and so I felt like um, this because of Pete, uh, I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm pretty sure there are many others out there who feel the same way, and they feel like they have a voice. They have, they do belong in their community,
Hmm.
and we gotta build on
Yeah,
that,
and
right?
belonging is one of Pete's rules of the road, right? Belonging.
Yep.
Which is something that I truly love about his campaign was the 10 rules of the road, and basically giving us a kind of a roadmap on how to behave when we're out there representing him. And I thought that was just absolutely fantastic. And I remember people kind of reminding each other to be kind and to be respectful and all those things, right? So I think it just made everybody like nicer and kinder, and that's to me is building community. And I haven't seen any campaign in the past that stressed that importance so much, and just the way that everybody handled themselves out there kind of made you proud to be part of Team Pete, right?
Mm, absolutely.
Yeah. So with all your volunteering and stuff, did you ever get to meet Pete in person?
I got to see Pete when he made campaign stops to make speeches. Got to shake his hand, but didn't
Hmm.
like get to be like talk one on one or anything.
You didn't get a selfie with
Well, I told you earlier that uh, I I almost got a selfie, but I felt shy about asking for a selfie. But
him?
that's just me. Because when he came out, I just shook his hand and
Yeah.
took his photo, and that was it. I wanted to take a selfie, but no.
Oh, next time, right?
Yeah, that will be the next time for sure.
Although you did mention that you got to meet Chaston at the airport. Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, so prior to that, Barnstormers for Pete, the first one in November, just a week prior, Chasten was in
So
town.
what is Barnstorm? Can you explain what the Barnstormers for Pete,
Yeah,
what they
so
do and who
Barnstormers
they
for
are?
Pete is an organization, a group of Pete supporters, led by several people. Um, and they I believe that they formed this group um, based on the fact that there was a similar support group for Barack Obama back in 2008. Because of
Hmm.
this group, they helped Obama win Iowa. And because Obama won
Hmm.
Iowa, that's how he was able to win, the other states in the primaries. And so the Barnstormers
Hmm.
for Pete group, they felt that they could, use the same strategy, repeat this level of magic. And if they felt that
Hmm.
if they were successful, then Pete will have like a shot at winning. Will carry the momentum from winning Iowa to the other states. And so that group also
Hmm.
grew quite quickly, And then the group was able to recruit, members from all 50 states to descend into Des Moines, Iowa, for that Liberty and Justice dinner event. And then, yeah, then that group is still, active, and the members, some of the members nowadays, they meet regularly just to follow up with each other, and and share news, and what's been going on, and especially just to um, look at all the positive things Pete has done now that he's Secretary of Transportation. So back to the barnstormers. So to so I signed up to become a member of the group. So to go to Des Moines in November 2019, and then prior to that event, Chester was in town the previous week, so I went there. I went to his event, and then Chester stayed around for a couple of days, I believe. And then on the day when I flew to Des Moines, I found out that he was going to be in the same plane with me from Denver, Colorado to Des Moines, Iowa. And there were also three other barnstormers for Pete in that same airplane. So when we all got out of the airplane, we were talking about ambushing Chasten because he was going to be the last one to exit the airplane. So we all waited for him, right? And finally, when he exited the airplane, we greeted him, and then he was gracious to take a selfie with us, and that was really the highlight. Yeah. And
Yeah,
later that
I
night
saw
we
that
got to meet him
picture.
again because I believe that day was Halloween. So we took a selfie there at the airport. Then we got to meet him again later that night at a Pumpkins for Pete event, which was also quite a fun event.
Pumpkin for Pete.
Yes, that's what yeah.
Was it like a fundraiser or what? What
No,
was
it,
it?
it was just it was a get together of the Barnstormers the night before the
Oh,
Liberty and
okay.
Justice dinner event.
Well, that's nice of him to show up and meet you guys.
Yeah, and his parents were there as well and Pete's mom. They were all there, and Pete's campaign manager, Mike Schmo, he was also there.
Did you get to take nice photos with them?
Um, just in the background because there were, lots of people in the front. And again, I'm, a shy person, so I really didn't take selfies.
Well, there's always the next time, right? When he runs
Yeah.
again.
But next time, if there's one, I'll definitely, loop you in so that you won't miss this kind of event. It's a fun event, and it's a great group to be around with. These are great, great people from across the country.
Yes, I agree. I think everybody that I've met through volunteering for his campaign I've ended up keeping contact with some of them, especially the local ones. So it's very nice to just stay in touch and keep each other posted on politics and whatnot. So there's a feeling of family there, right?
Yeah.
Camaraderie, which I really like. So I know that we worked hard for his campaign, and then he unfortunately pulled out before the primary. So how did that make you feel when you heard the news?
I definitely felt sad. I remember that day because earlier on that day, I actually, went canvassing around my area to, like put,
Hmm.
cards and stuff on people's doormat, let them know about, the primary in California coming up, and that, they should consider Pete, voting for Pete. But then later that evening, suddenly I got a notification on my phone or some, or I looked into Twitter, and then, it started to, um, gain traction about Pete dropping out. And I felt, oh no,
Hmm.
this is about, this can't be happening. And yeah, I went straight to sleep because I just couldn't believe that, this was reality, right? Because, you know, at that point, Pete won Iowa, tied in New Hampshire, and then
Hmm.
lost in South Carolina. Um, but yeah,
Right.
the prospects were starting to look dim. Um, but yeah, I felt incredibly sad that I made through this journey in the last almost 12 months. And then for it to collapse in this
Mm.
moment, it was very unreal for me. And then several days later, I think on
Devastating,
Wednesday,
right?
yeah, on the following Wednesday after he had dropped out, he went on Zoom to to address all of us supporters, and I was there. I listened in, and it yeah yeah it sunk me real bad. But then
Did you listen to his speech when he pulled out?
yeah, absolutely, I did. Yeah.
And then you went to bed?
Well, I went to bed first, but then I came back to watch it. Yeah, because when he made that
Hmm.
a speech about pulling out, it was pretty late into the night, I think. But yeah, but however, that wasn't
Yeah, I think
really what.
that day I was uh, doing the farmer tabling at the farmers market, and then I think when I got home later in the late afternoon was when I heard the news and I saw the article pop up, and I thought, no, this can't be. So it was very devastating. But then I listened to his speech that evening, and I think I cried a long time. Yeah, really,
Because you
really
put so
cried.
much into this, right? And everybody, was heavily invested into this, so it's
Yeah, and not just
understandably
that, but I
disappointing.
just felt like such a loss for the country to not be able to elect this brilliant, amazing man as president, and just felt it's a terrible, terrible loss. Just not just for Team Pete, but for the entire country, what they just missed out on.
Right. But we we came out okay because um, you know, Pete came out and to endorse uh, President Biden. So and now I think we're in a better state. So not all hope is lost. So
Yeah,
there will always be
yeah,
another opportunity. I'm very positive about that.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that once he pulled out and threw his weight behind Biden, it's kind of, I could see why he did what he did. I mean, the votes were not there for him. And so why not dilute why dilute the votes, right? Going into March primary, and so that everybody can pull their weight behind Biden. And well, we came out and won, so thank
It was a
God.
great decision on his end to act swiftly, right?
Yeah,
To get the people behind Biden.
yeah, yeah. So I totally understand why he did what he did. So it all came out for the better. So
And that's who he is
good
anyway,
for
right?
us.
Because he understands sacrifice for the better of the country, right?
Hmm. Right? Yeah, it's definitely a team player. So what do you miss most about um, not being part of Team Pete anymore? I mean, you're still Team Pete, right?
Exactly.
Forever Team Pete.
Yeah. Like you say, right? Because of the pandemic, we don't get to meet our fellow Team Pete members anymore.
Hmm.
Um, you know, we were actually going to
Yeah,
have like
yeah.
a get together um, after Pete had dropped out,
Hmm.
but because of the pandemic hitting us at the same time, we all had to like cancel all of our get-togethers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But since then, me and our group here in the South Bay, we got to have like a couple of get-togethers, and it was good to reminisce and talk about Pete and talk about the current status of the country, and so it's all good now.
Hmm. So, how did you feel when you heard the news that Biden nominated him for Secretary of Transportation?
Oh, super excited. At first, I didn't know much about transportation, but then once
Hmm.
I started to look more into it, I was like, that is a very fitting job for Pete, you know? Yeah, because I was
Hmm.
looking forward to Pete getting some sort of position. Yeah, because there were lots of suggestions and debates out there as to what Pete should be getting uh, as a cabinet role. But once
Hmm.
I found out that he got that position for Secretary of Transportation and learned more about it, it made total sense. And so I was really looking forward to that day when he would be sworn in, and that was also a great day, by the way, to to get
Hmm.
him, you know, get that job.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my initial reaction was, what? Transportation? um, but then I realized, his job as a mayor has a lot to do with the roads and making sure roads and everything else within the community is working smoothly. So, and yeah, like you, I kind of looked into what the heck transportation was all about, and I didn't realize there was so much involved in it. And then the more that I learned about Biden's infrastructure bill and ideas, I thought, wow, he's actually going to be the center of it all and handling all that. So I felt like that is the perfect role for him to be at the center of everything.
Yeah, and there's a lot of money involved, right? Lots of projects around the country that
Hmm.
will be needing this funding
Yeah.
to to rebuild the country and support the economy for
Yeah.
years to come. So it's a big role to
Hmm.
fill, and I'm glad that Pete got that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think once I understood the bigger picture and his role in it, it made a lot of sense. Um, so let's pretend that he's going to run again in 2024. We can all dream, right?
Yeah.
Um, and let's say he wins. What what issues would you want him to tackle firsthand?
Well, like what he said in his interview with Jake Tapper, the issue that he would tackle firsthand is on democracy, basically to ensure that everyone's vote counts. We've got to reform our democracy. You know, well, there are a lot of things in that package. So I believe that that's going to be
Yeah.
the one thing that Pete will target, right? Because without that, then everything else falls apart. So that
Yeah.
that's what I feel is going to be the most important thing that he's going to focus on.
Yeah, especially voting rights, right? And then the whole election fraud and making sure that our election system is perfectly intact, and so that we don't have, another January 6th again.
Right.
Did you see at the January 6th event? Did you see some of the Vietnamese flags that were flying around?
Yeah, I saw that. It was very cringy for me to see that flag being,
Mm-hmm.
flown at that event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm being misrepresented, because I'm Vietnamese, but I don't like to
Mm-hmm.
see that represent me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, surely, you can like support whoever you want. If you are Vietnamese conservative and you want to vote for Donald Trump, that's fine. But what you shouldn't do is like, join these groups of, people who many of them are, I don't want to use like the wrong adjectives out there. It's just, let's just say that those Vietnamese people who were flying those flags they were with the wrong crowd. That they shouldn't have been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I actually didn't see that part until I went to my parents' home to visit them one time, and they were talking about it on the Vietnamese news channels, and then that's when I saw the Vietnamese flag, and it just made me so furious that that was in that picture. Because, like you said, you can vote for whoever you want. We live in a democracy. And you, as a Vietnamese American, came from a communist country. And now you live in a democracy, and yet you want to overthrow this democracy just because your guy lost.
Right.
know?
It's just
So
counterintuitive.
it just, yeah, yeah. And yeah, I was so furious. Yeah. And it's like
Yeah, it's not like
you live in a democracy where you can vote. You couldn't do that in Vietnam. So why would you want to destroy this country and its democracy and what it stands for?
yeah. Sometimes I ask myself whether these people were confused because it's totally contradictory to their beliefs, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that a lot of these Trumpers are just misinformed, and somehow,
That could be it. Yes.
unfortunately, they fell into the wrong crowd, like you said. Um, but yeah, it was very disappointing to see that. And I felt kind of ashamed as a Vietnamese American to see that as part of our history now. So continuing with our dream that Pete will be president, let's say that you would qualify for any position in his administration. Which position would you want?
I don't know. It's any position is gonna be a it's a big job to fill. Um, uh, I mean, personally, I would
If you had to pick one.
well, that's the thing. I don't know what there is to do, but I would want to I would be comfortable with any position where I can engage with other people to talk about the policy and to convince them that this is how uh, we should move forward. This is the right direction that we should be in. That kind of stuff. Similar to the volunteer work that we've done.
Mm. So like a liaison to Congress or what? Like a
Uh,
staffer in the West Wing?
yeah, I don't know for sure. Well, yes, I'd say. But
Okay.
whatever it is, I'm
I
pretty
think I
sure
would
it'll
want to be
be
his chief
it'll
of
be
staff.
joyful to work for Pete.
Yeah. Yeah. I would actually want to be his chief of staff
But yeah,
because then I'd get to be everywhere with him. It's a little obsessive, but yeah, I would want to be his eyes and ears and around the White House and everywhere else. So
yeah.
that would be
Now,
cool.
whatever the
But
position
that's only
is,
if I'm qualified.
it's important to keep in mind that we would be like supporting the country, right? Because we want to
Hmm.
make sure that um, the country gets to a better state than it was before. So as long as you keep
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
mentality, then I think you can excel in whatever job it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the people who would be on Pete's team would all have that in common, to do things for the greater good of the country. I think they kind of represented that within his campaign already. So if you translate that into a national level and doing things in the White House and actually getting things done and helping the American people, I think they can definitely do that. All right. So if you could describe Pete in one word, how would you describe him? I know that there's a lot of adjectives we can use, but just one word.
One word: presidential.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I didn't think of that. Yeah, I think
Right.
I would describe
If
him
not
as just
presidential,
kind.
why why go through all the all this stuff, right?
True, true. That's a good one. It's a good one to describe him as. Yeah. Okay. Um, well, my dogs are scratching at the door. um, so I think we can end here if that's good with you. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I just want to point out that I've seen on Twitter, like on separate occasions, Pete gets a new wave of new people who find him to be brilliant, especially when they hear him respond to difficult questions such as abortion and stuff. And so it's
Hmm.
really great to see, people responding positively to his answers on such topics. His answer was so nuanced and they're very empathetic, to real lives. And so, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just great to see that on Twitter occasionally.
Yeah, and I feel like in his position now, he has a lot of national exposure, and that's really good for him. And I think more people are aware now of who he is, and especially when he goes on Fox News and tries to talk about things and just sounding very, very smart, and the people who are asking him questions are trying to ask, gotcha questions, and he just doesn't fall for it. And just the way that he's able to be so calm, I just find it amazing, because I don't think I could be that calm when I'm dealing with those people. So, yeah, kudos to him for that.
He knows exactly what he's talking about. So,
All right.
yeah, and he's not shy to do that. So that's one of the great things about him.
Yeah, he really is great thinking on his feet, for sure. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. So thank you for being my first podcast. All right, thanks, Nathan.
Nice talking to you, Kim.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and
Likewise.
I'll talk to you some other time. Okay,
All right.
bye.
Bye.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, please be sure to subscribe so this channel can grow and I'll be able to share more stories with you each week. Thank you for listening.